So here we are in the Ways and Means Committee. It is Wednesday, March 25th. 1:45. We have a number of amendments to hear. And before we do that, I'm going to turn over to Representative Brannigan.
Well, we don't often get correspondence here in the committee, but we have a lovely thank you note from the state treasurer. He says, I can't thank you all enough for your support of H577 and for your good work repeating it on the House floor this afternoon. I know this will do a lot of good for Vermonters and your support was appreciated. My office really enjoyed the opportunity to work with your committee, and we all look forward to more opportunities in the future. Thank you all. Thank you for all you do on and help us make it a better place. So all the best, my teacher.
That is lovely. Thank you, Representative Brannigan.
Yes. Very nice.
So the first amendment sponsor is our own Representative Kimball. I believe I co-sponsored this amendment with him, and it's partly a technical amendment, so I'm going to ask Kirby to cover the whole thing.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Kirby?
Being laughed at. Kirby Keating, Legislative Council. I'm sharing with you a floor amendment for today for H 933 that's being offered by Representatives Kimball and Kornheiser. There's three instances of amendment here. The first two relate to the same topic. And that is, if you'll recall, when we walked through this, I had worked with the tax department to put together decoupling language. While we were working through it, I think I'd mentioned in my walkthrough that the department had asked, do they want language to decouple from, this goes to decoupling from the qualified small business stock change, right? At the federal level. And so the department asked, well, what about Vermont's 40% exclusion of those gains? And we didn't really know, but the department thought it followed logically. Like, I don't want to say that they were trying to make any kind of policy pitch because they weren't. I want to be clear about that. They thought it followed logically to have language in there to not allow Vermont's 40% exclusion for those gains. So that was the language that we put in, and we came in and we went over in committee. I do recognize that that was in the middle of, that was section 55 of, 60 something sections. And I went over a lot of things. So Representative Kimball pointed out that, hey, I'm not sure that we paid enough attention to this. So asked that I put together an amendment to allow the Vermont 40% capital gains exclusion for those gains. So different than what was passed out of here.
And I just want to say, I remember saying on the record that our intent was to treat it like any other capital gains. And so I want to apologize for my oversight on this as well.
So that's what we're doing. So these first two instances of amendment are removing the language that was proposed to be added to the 40% exclusion. It says that that this amendment would strike out that underlying language. That underlying language is the part that would not allow the 40% exclusion for gains from qualified small business stock. So that's being removed from the bill with this. And then third is I had asked this.
And the reason why I have the two different sections, one is personal income, the other is trusts on the states, right?
That's correct. So Division 21 is definition of taxable income for individuals. 28 is definition of taxable income for estates and trusts returns. A lot of this, whenever we're decoupling from individual personal income tax, we have to do it twice in the other definition also. So third is just a recommendation from me that I change the effective dates to be super sure that there's no confusion whatsoever about when things take effect. This part that I highlighted had originally been 2025. I had originally slotted in with this first part of the effective date. What this does is, so there's three parts of the effective date when it comes to the decoupling and the link up. The first part is the statutory language in the link up, which gives a specific date. The second part is when it becomes effective, and the third part is this last part of the provision that says shall apply to taxable years beginning on and after January 1, 2025. So considering the statutory language is very specific, the last part of this provision is very specific. I threw this in originally in with the other thing, which is actually to take effect January 1, 2025. From my point of view, I don't think that there's any legally significant difference because when it becomes effective, because the other provisions are very clear about what's happening here. But to make sure that the door's all the way closed on anyone trying to argue that we are somehow coupling up to a version of federal law that didn't exist yet, January 1, 2025. I went ahead and gave it its own effective date with that date specific to January 1, 2026 to make sure that we are just completely airtight on the effective dates. It's me and Abby and Will of Tax Department are maybe three of the only people who care much about this.
I really appreciate you caring about it. I know that one of the hardest things about conformity and the link up is getting the effective dates right and the sort of continued dispute about that. So I really appreciate your diligence on this. And I also really appreciate, again, like the incredible collaboration we have with the tax department for this.
That's it.
Questions for Kirby?
Good.
Any questions for Charlie?
I'm gonna set it better myself.
Thanks, Kirby. Pat, there is some fiscal impact of this correction, right?
Yeah, a little bit. So if I just,
Yep.
it's gonna reduce the positive revenue impact of decoupling from the federal treatment. And making it so that it's eligible for the capital gains exclusion and overall for the, I know the net impact that you're looking at is between this year 26 and 27. That change is gonna be about 300,000.
And appropriations is already accounting for this.
Yes.
Great. Any other questions for Pat?
This money is interest that we won't be earning. What is it?
Capital gains, really.
Oh, okay.
Is this the 1.67 line? This is, are we still talking about the qualified small business?
Yes.
Okay, and I remember it in year one, there's a change and then there was one point something and then 1.67, so you're just removing 300 from each of those years?
So. Maybe it would help if I showed the vehicle.
Sure. Thanks. It's up on our committee page.
So it'll be an updated fiscal notes.
So this is the line, right here. So you're only expecting from decoupling to start receiving additional revenue, starting in 27 and into 28. What we did was look at overall, capital gains, losses. And what portion of that is typically, excluded from the tax calculation. And so overall, the sort of net impact came out to be about a 10% reduction in the estimates.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions for anyone? Yes, Representative Muslim.
10% reduction in what? So by applying the capital gains exclusion to, like, allowing this capital gains type to be eligible against the capital gains exclusion.
Yeah.
That lowered the estimate that you saw last time by about 10%. And so overall, the net impact between fiscal years 26 and 27 is about 300,000 less. Thank you. That was before.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions about this? You want to represent Kimball?
Nope, all good to go.
Can someone represent Kimball's amendment? This was trouble. So we don't need to unload that. All those, watch me think in real time in front of you all. All those in favor of Representative Kimball's amendments, say aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Sorry. Sorry.
So you were, yes, I.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
sorry.
So our straw poll is favorable, 11-0.
Thank you. Back 1.2. Representative Logan, did I lose an amendment from you somewhere? Okay, great, good to know. Lot sprang up today. Okay, so I think next up we'll have Rep. Tagliavia. We're still on miscellaneous tax, folks. Welcome back to Ways and Means.
Thank you. Madam Chair, Ways and Means Committee, thank you for hearing my amendment. Try not to take too much of your time. I'm presenting amendment to H 933. If I could, it strikes out sections 18 and 19, federal tax credit for SGO contributions in their entireties, and inserts in lieu thereof new sections 18 and 19 to read as follows. Subsection 24, Governor's List of Scholarship Granting Organizations. Annually on December 1, the governor or designee may elect to provide a list of organizations to the U.S. Secretary of Treasury for purposes of making the federal qualified elementary and secondary education scholarship tax credit available for Vermont taxpayer contributions to Vermont scholarship granting organizations under 26 USC subsection 25F. It shall be presumed that an organization listed in the previous year will be listed in a subsequent year unless the governor finds that the organization has failed to meet the requirements of 26 USC 25F, and section 19 will be deleted. I present this amendment because, especially in these hard economic times, if there is a vehicle, number one, for Vermont taxpayers to take a deduction, I'm all for it. And more importantly, I like the idea of the students of Vermont having a little bit more advantage. This would, in my mind, I just think about, when I think about this, and the idea that students, especially because of if students at the 300% or lower of the household area gross median income would be able to take advantage of this. So in the interest of equity, in the interest of heeding the yard sign that we see when we have school budgets, support the students. That's why I present this amendment. So it's a very short spiel, but that's my spiel. I'm not sure if anybody has any questions for me.
Thank you. We certainly discussed this at some length in committee, and while we might have many disagreements within the committee about whether this tax is a good idea or not a good idea, sort of two pieces that I think are separate from that question are, one, usually tax decisions are the purview of the legislature and not the governor. And so that was sort of one reason why we had this language. And then the second, is that the federal rules have not been set yet. And so we're nervous about opening this up and then being in conflict with federal rules and law. And so like punting the whole thing to next year seemed like a good legislative decision. So I'm curious your thoughts on those two things.
First, with respect to the governor being the one making a decision, whether the governor or the legislature makes a decision, if we could keep this tax credit, I'm happy. That language I'm fine with changing. And what was the other part of your question? Oh, the
Federal rules.
I'm a little bit new here, but I've seen plenty of legislation where we approve statutes and then we go into rulemaking afterward. And if we've made that precedent, why not find a way to do it for this?
Oh, so I think it's when we do that, and we are so lucky to have two members of LCAR on this committee. So I know more about the rulemaking process than I ever thought I would if not serving on LCAR. I'm grateful for their services because I don't ever want to serve in Elkhart. I'm talking about the federal rulemaking process. And so we don't want the federal, usually our state rulemaking process has to follow our legislative intent, but the federal rulemaking process certainly does not. And we could wind up in direct opposition, and I'm nervous of that.
Well, since I don't know a lot about tax policy, maybe someone here can answer my question. Is there a way to add in this language so when the bill does eventually pass, that there could be a retroactive look back so that there would not be a wait for the next session, so that beginning January 1, 2027, this would already be in effect, and once the rules came about, hit the ground running. Is that possible?
Do you have any ideas on that?
You could make it an effective date and just say this only becomes effective on such and such a date if,
I think
depending on what the feds say.
I think the problem is we still wouldn't be able to know how we would set our own rules to add guidance on it.
That's true, but we would start the thinking process later.
And Mike, there were discussions about, could we put bumpers around how the money could be used from the SGOs? And so the question is, we didn't feel like we could do that in advance of the federal rules coming out, which would preempt the state rules. So that was part of the discussion we had.
The other question that I've got, and we talked about this a little bit, my understanding is that some of the rules are already promulgated at the federal level. Maybe not all of them, but enough so that I don't know as though we necessarily need to adapt those rules to Vermont. I mean, it's a federal program based on, what they're considering. And I think we have enough knowledge now to know what it might be like. Anyway, and I guess the next question would be, if we were to allow it to go through this way or whatever way it might be, we can next year adjust it if we wanted. So that's another point to be made. We could go this route, not exclude it, not get people all yanked up about how we're not allowing them to take advantage of some scholarship money for a host of different reasons, whether it's scholarships, books, after school programs, you name it. So again, I just think it's a perspective thing as well. So anyway, that's where I'm.
I hear that. I imagine the people would also get yanked up if we, I really like that phrase. We change the rules halfway through the game too, but.
If there are rules, it would have been reported in the Federal Register. Did you?
Speaking myself to council, the IRS has not issued even proposed rules at this point to review, let alone final rules.
Issued guidance, but no rules.
One last point, if I may, as far as I understand, Vermont taxpayers who make a donation will be able to make a donation this year, which would be great for them tax-wise. But Vermont students, unfortunately, this year, without some language, would not be able to take advantage of this. And that's my major concern. So if anybody has any other questions.
So is this paragraph here needed in order to make Vermont students able to take the scholarships in the entire paragraph?
That I would need to defer to Ledge Council on.
Council again. That's, your language that you're saying is a pretty basic version that expressly has Vermont opt into the tax credit program. If you had no language at all, Vermont could still opt in. So you do not need that language for Vermont to opt in. I think in both cases, that language and doing nothing would result in Vermont being able to opt in. Vermont SGOs would have to follow all of the federal statutes for how to operate, but there would be no additional Vermont requirement.
Okay, so we don't need this. Vermont kids now can,
But the miscellaneous H933 has two provisions that opt Vermont out. So this language is being proposed to replace opting out of the program to opting into the program.
that's 18 and 19.
Yes.
So,
And for whatever it's worth, I've had sort of offline, more casual conversations with members of the administration who would want to limit this if we were going to do it.
Administration.
Very offline, I probably shouldn't even, sorry.
Okay.
No,
it's
it's
good.
not the Senate.
Oh, great, they did testify in the Senate,
They want it, they asked for it in the Senate.
but to limit it,
To limit it in what way?
I don't know exactly.
So the Senate is making changes.
The Senate did vote a different version of this, has language related to this same paragraph that I think at this point they're holding, waiting for the miscellaneous tax bill to get to them. But they do have a separate vehicle for it as well.
I think we're all hearing grief from some of our constituents that they're thinking that they won't be able to have their kids participate in this, but if that's not true, and if we were working toward allowing them to do that by the end of the session, it's a different deal.
I think what the Senate's doing and what we're doing in committee, and so I think that we shouldn't make any decision. We should make sure we don't do anything and don't allow this until we have all the federal rules in place, because I don't think it's responsible to make a decision until that happens. And I think that decision should be the legislature's and not the administration's decision.
that's what H 933 does.
Could you say that again, Charlotte?
That's what H 933 does. Says, under these rules, it would either be the governor or another entity that would opt in. And we are, as a legislature, then passing it saying only the legislature can opt in.
And I was more saying, Representative Brannigan, is that I think the Senate's going to keep this discussion alive for us.
But now the governor is able to opt in, but we have, as the Ways and Means Committee, the legislature still has to approve the governor's opting in the end. Is that correct?
The Ways and Means Committee miscellaneous tax bill that is going to be on the floor today opts us out pending all of those other things happening. Opts us out.
So that we can see what the rules are, what the rules are published. And
It has nothing to do with the governor is out
Yes,
of it.
it puts the governor out of it.
Because the governor doesn't decide tax policy. the
Say,
legislature does.
why are we even talking about governor chooses what everything else?
The federal
There has to be what we all in the House and then the Senate and then maybe he'll veto it, maybe he won't. What?
The federal.
My
The
recollection.
federal rule from HR 1, so,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah,
you know, the way the Trump administration designed this,
Uh-huh.
this governors that opted in or out, even though most states leave all tax policy to their legislature.
yeah, that's interesting.
So here in the first line where it says governor or designee, that was from the big bill, big beautiful bill. That wasn't what we did. Okay, and we're saying, no, it's not, I mean, I totally agree with that. You guys know, I want to separate our responsibilities. So we've got the executive and we are the legislative. So this is the executive. They do not make this tax policy legal and yeah, okay, for sure.
Any other questions for Representative Tagliavia? Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
So the purposes of your floor reporting, would you like this to be a motion to not approve?
I think that would be helpful.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm gonna ask for a show of hands to not find this amendment favorable. So the show of hands is to reject the amendment. All those in favor? All those opposed?
So we are finding the language favor.
You are.
Okay, so the straw poll rejects the Tagliavia amendment,
Yes.
7-4 to 0.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Representative Cole, would you like to join us? Thank you. Is Representative Priestley joining you or no?
No, she's out.
Okay, and Mark, can you let them know that we're at Representative Cole? Just with your cellular telephone, perhaps?
Oh, come on, I wanna straighten it up.
All right. The floor is yours.
Hey, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak here. I know you're all doing a lot right now, so but I have to present to you something that is not unfamiliar. In fact, it sort of takes the shape of what was known as H621, more or less. So I'm going to read some words. I'm going to speak on my behalf, but also try to include the voice of Monique, and Rep. Priestley, of course. And she had some written comments as well, so I'm going to read those too. So start with those. Chair Kornheiser, Vice Chair Canfield, and members of the committee. This amendment adds 2 new income tax brackets to Vermont's personal income tax structure. It increases taxes on marginal income over $500,000 by 3%, and on marginal income over $1 million by an additional 2%. That is it. The fiscal impact is significant. This policy would raise between $100 million and $200 million in state revenue annually. That is money that could fund the programs that have come before all of our committees with needs we cannot meet at present. Due to the passage of HR 1 at the federal level, the top 1% of taxpayers are receiving an average federal tax cut of $57,000 in 2026. In aggregate, that top 1% will save over $200 million in federal taxes this year. The top 20% of Vermonters are set to save over $730 million in federal taxes in 2026. What this amendment does, on average, is ask affected taxpayers to contribute back less than the federal tax cut that they are already receiving. We are not asking them to give back all of it. We are asking for a portion. A few other data points worth having in front of us include the top 1% of Vermont income earners. Average income is 20 times that of the bottom 99%. The top 1% currently pays a smaller share of their income in state and local taxes than many middle-income Vermonters. The top levels of Vermont's tax brackets have not kept pace with the concentration of income and wealth that has occurred over the past several decades. I'll note that this amendment is substantially drawn from H621, which has already been developed and analyzed this session. The policy work has been done. The question before this committee is whether we choose to act on it. Thank you.
That's what I was wondering, because I was looking at the bill and it actually moves the tax brackets up as well. Not just establishes the new ones, but adjusts the other ones by about 30% more or less. So wondering why, if you could speak to that.
My understanding of the bill language that all the detail, which makes the amendment look so complicated, was to adjust for the inflators. Because every time you need to create a new, you change the tax bracket, and of course, Ledge Council and JFO would be much more eloquently able to explain this. But you know, the only thing changing, in my understanding and intention rather, is to add that additional 2 tax brackets for the 500,000 and above earners, and then $1 million and above earners. So what I think would be the inflator adjustment is what you might be referring to.
The underlying law has sort of a base, and then we inflate it every year. And so like current law is different from the current practice is different from
Loud for everybody.
Yeah, I'm sorry. And maybe I should have, okay. Did I say it right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just say it louder then. So the underlying statute has a base amount that was set in whatever year, and it has an inflator attached to it. So current practice, because of current law, is operating from a different bracket number than the underlying statute because of the inflator that was built in. And so when you change it, you need to sort of just name what the current inflated, like what the current practice is.
I wish that the amendment could look more clean, because then it would be very clear the intention of it. But I guess that is a ways and means magic that has to happen there as well.
Magic in this.
Yes.
Anyone else have any questions?
The thing that you want to do, Esma, is the last thing here, and I'm looking through to see if I can't find it again. Oh, golly. Page 7 or 4? Yes. So I see over line 1, on page 5 over 250,000, but not over 500,000. Is this a, percentage of 11.75, starting at 250? You know, there's a lot of Vermonters work in that bracket, a lot of married, working, double parents, mom, and dad both working,
Absolutely.
professional careers, a lot of people fall in that bracket. And, okay, but here we go, over 500,000, line 4, that's 13.75%.
Can I have my calendar back, Carol?
I'm 31 is this Ed, this one is Ed, third reading.
I think we're okay skipping third. Okay. Does that feel okay for you, Bridget?
It does.
Okay.
Yeah, my process.
Okay.
Thank you, I understand what you.
Sorry about that.
You want, that's the crux of what you want to do. The rest of it is just sort of the computer adjusting itself.
Yes, I think so. And I,
Yeah, it results in an increase in tax for those ends of brackets too. That's okay.
yeah, I mean, I think the point of emphasis that really stood to me most is that, as you all are familiar, you know, our tax brackets stop at $312,000. And that's, you know, we are missing in terms of equity, in terms of how much proportional share of wealth people are being asked to contribute. We know that the middle income earners below that are being asked to pay a far larger share than those that exceed that highest tier, which is, in my opinion, a bit imbalanced because it hurts the middle portion far more than it would hurt that top portion. And I think we do have the power within this body to, you know, shore things up onto a more equitable slope, rather, so that people aren't hurting the way that they are today relatively. And that's not to disincentivize high income earners. We love that. We want high income earners in the state. But it's just so that we don't have to overburden that middle portion because everyone is paying sort of an equitable amount in order to fund the functions of state government that we all benefit from.
This would give us the highest marginal tax rate in the country. Right? I think California's 13.3. Maybe my stats are wrong. I'm just wondering, in that vein, if we're talking about being an attractive place for individuals to go or stay, those that have money, how does that square?
Yeah, well, I do think in terms of record setting as well, we are both in this state and in this country, you know, we are at an unprecedented point in time where wealth inequality is just really, we haven't been in this place since the 1920s, late 1920s. And that's huge. So like, you know, when we're talking about unprecedented circumstances, like we are in unprecedented times and need to respond to that too. And I think your question is kind of leaning into the question of tax flight a little bit for that top tier in particular. And my argument I go back to is I'm concerned that we are experiencing tax flight now as it exists today, but not perhaps for the portion that we are indicating as much as the lower tier who cannot afford to live here because the combination of property taxes and income is not allowing them to sustain quality of life here. Whereas being in that top tier, you all is said and done, even if we are taxing them more proportionately according to what they can afford to pay, they still have more freedom and the ability to choose to live here if they want to live here. And there are all kinds of reasons that people choose to live in Vermont, which I think all of us are very familiar with because we love our state. And research shows as well that, you know, it's just starting because unfortunately we don't have enough good precedent of progressive tax policy in the United States, but in states where this has been enacted or progressive at the top of the income tier, you know, more relative taxation, people are not leaving. You know, in New York, in Minnesota as well, which specifically applied to the personal income tax increase there. So I think the proof is in the data, but the proof is in our stories too, especially of the struggles of the people who are not, like I'm not to say that things aren't hard for people who are earning that much, but things are really hard for the tier earning less than that right now. And so I just think that burden should be shared a little bit more proportionally and equitably. And so that's kind of what this sentiment is about.
Yeah, Representative Booker.
To answer your question, I think we also
need to take a broad picture. And what I'm really worried about, I think about the loss of the enhanced subsidies in the exchange, for example. We're already hearing that we have the highest healthcare insurance rates in the nation. And people are predicting that just the loss of those subsidies alone is going to add 4 percentage points to our marketplace premium. This not backfilling for them is a tax on small business and single proprietors, and it's a double tax because they pay for their own healthcare, but they also have to pay for their employees. So that loss of those enhanced subsidies is anti-small business. And, I think whether it costs us less to that top group to not support making sure people have healthcare, I think that's something we haven't really discussed. I think we need to discuss that because this is gonna, it's also gonna, they're also saying it's gonna affect our own hospitals in the form of bad debt, non-collectible debt. People are dropping plans already. We've got Vermonters who are giving up health insurance. And the data is accurate. The people who are leaving the state actually aren't the high earners. It's the people who are earning between 9,000 and 140.
I would agree with you that, that there are many Americans that are making a great deal of money not paying their fair share. But Vermont already has a terrible reputation for high taxes. And I'm just afraid I can't support this.
Absolutely. If I could respond to that piece, if that's okay, I completely understand. I don't, contrary to maybe perception, I'm not a fan of high taxes necessarily either, but I am a fan of proportional taxes, right? And so even though it's might sound like an appealing argument to say like no new taxes or, no, I do think this is our only gateway to perhaps making the burden proportional on lower tiers. I think we are overburdening, overtaxing that middle tier that I'm referring to because we are not proportionally taxing that above tier. So it's rather like a shoring up rather than new higher taxes, but like a leveling the playing field. Because right now there are trends that are really disconcerting in terms of how that middle portion is being treated. But I completely agree, like no taxes, this, taxes, that, it's a lot. But hopefully the like specificity of what I'm talking about is coming through. Thank you.
Representative Cole, I love this policy.
Yes,
I was
I
so
know.
proud for this committee to pass this out last biennium and to have it leave the House last biennium and go to the Senate, very similar policy. I don't think this session we have, and that is, very much on me, have scheduled enough testimony to actually like fully work through these brackets, understand the implications, understand the revenue with the people around this table right now and in this particular vehicle right now. And I know I often think that talking about vehicles is like, and procedure is like the weakest thing a person can do in this building. But I think in this case, this is like massively important tax policy and massively needed tax policy. And it deserves a little bit more time than we're able to give it today. Yeah, Representative Maslin.
Yeah, thank you for coming in. From a philosophical point of view, I support your amendment. And we're aware of, at the end of the day, something like this likely to get vetoed if it survives both chambers. I'm wondering where the sweet spot is, if it's not mean just to pick a number, 4%, with 2% get through someday. I mean, and it's something, as Chair was saying, we haven't taken enough testimony to pick our way through what would be successful at the end of the day. And we can certainly make a statement on what we believe is fair and equitable. That's clear enough. But then what? So I've said my 10 cents, but that's kind of what I'm wondering about,
Yeah, Representative Courage. I just appreciate, it feels like you are the example of the kind of person in Vermont we need to support to be in Vermont. And I would just like to have a chance to make your case on the floor. And I realize that it's not going to pass, but I really think it's important that you have a chance to make your case.
So thank you.
Yes, Representative.
So I'll support you in the committee. It's what I'd like to do. but that may be as far as it goes at the end of the day.
Yep,
I appreciate it.
thank you.
So I'm gonna ask us to do a straw poll to decline this amendment. All those in favor of declining the amendment?
So it's like, it's a 7-4-0 straw poll to decline.
Thank you, Representative.
Thank you, appreciate your time.
I'm again as many.
Okay.
Folks, we are going to switch our focus, but not our gears, from H 933, thank you for laughing at my bad joke, Teddy, to H 949.
In fact,
With a brief break for one person to get tea, and Representative McCoy, if you'd like to join us, please. Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. For the record, am I starting?
Yeah, you're on.
All right.
The floor is yours.
For the record, Patty McCoy, Representative Patty McCoy, representing Rutland One, which is Poultney, Ira, and I share wells with Representative Pritchard. And I have submitted an amendment, a short amendment. I'm hoping that you have seen that on your.
It's up on our committee.
It's on your page. Okay.
It's under Representative McCoy's name.
And the amendment is pretty simple. Vermonters need more property tax relief now. They simply can't afford to an average of a 7% increase after bills have already gone up almost 40% in the last 5 years. This amendment applies the full governor recommend $105 million for property tax relief this year and lowers property taxes compared to the underlying bill this year by more than $50 million. Nobody likes using one-time money to float a broken education finance system, but this should be viewed as a bridge to the new, more sustainable system I hope we're trying to build, and we can get it past the finish line, as Representative Kornheiser and I have worked diligently on for the last 9 weeks or so. Too many Vermonters are struggling to get by. They are on the edge and don't have time to wait for education transformation to take place. And this takes a step towards providing more relief now as we continue to work on creating a better system. So I'll just briefly walk through the bill. I had help from, thank you, Attorney Gray from Ledge Council for drafting it up. And actually, Julie Richter from JFO provided the numbers for me. I am amending section 1 simply by putting in the new figures that allow for use of the $105 million draw directly to the yield. And I am deleting section 2, which you held half of it in reserve. And that's really what the bill does, what the amendment does.
Representative McCoy, I share your commitment to changing our property tax system. I share your concern for property tax bills this upcoming year. I'm curious what you plan to do the year after if we don't reserve any.
So
This transformation will not be done by then.
in the last 3 years, we've shelled out $270 million towards this, and we're no closer to finding, and that's why I'm not quite getting why we can't come to some kind of agreement in the education committee and our weekly meetings, of which we've had several, to try to fix this broken system. And, it's not about, I think a lot of people in education think, deliver, lower taxes to residents, but my concern is actually the students. Because I know my students in my district are not afforded the same opportunities as those students at CVU or larger high schools or larger elementary schools, because there are schools that can offer 4 and 5 different languages. We're lucky if my high school can offer one. And that's not equity. And until we realize that it's about the student and what we can provide, it's not how long they have to travel to school, because right now my children, if they were on the bus, would be traveling a half an hour to 45 minutes just to get to my local high school in Pullman. And I live 4 miles away. If they're bused, it's going to take them a half an hour to get there. So it's not about geography. It's not about that. It's about equity and providing a great education to every student that lives here. And since we're not there right now, I don't want to lay this on the backs of taxpayers once again. And that's what we're doing. The governor recommended $105 million. Last year, it was 76 million. The year before, it was 90 some odd million. We as a legislature are failing students because we're not changing the way we fund and deliver education. And I'm not prepared to not use every bit of money that we have available to actually lower the cost from 7% to under 4% and realize a difference to every property owner in the state of Vermont.
Representative Woody?
I have to say that I remember being in this, in the House almost 30 years ago.
Before our time.
And hearing, and and having someone be, I'm just gonna say, it sounds like a lot of different languages, right? But then you think, okay, if you require a study of non-English language in high school of 3 years, and you have 1,000 kids in your high school, then you have the ability to have, you probably might need to staff 5 teachers. So you could have all 5 teachers teach one language. They might all teach Spanish. Or you could have one who teaches German, 2 who teach French, 1 who teaches Latin, 1 who teaches something else. Because the main thing is you've got to run the classes so the kids can have 3 years. So that's, I remember saying that to the House Committee on Education. And I remember after I said it, they all turned to each other and I thought, they're not listening to me. So I just know that, for instance, we had a German teacher who was so good with the kids who were kind of foreign language was not their forte at all. And I've been in her classroom, all the difficult stuff was hanging on the walls, they could memorize it. And they were able to do well in that. And she was also a drama teacher who put on gorgeous musicals every year in the fall, and then she put on things in the spring that were more serious. But anyway, that's what I want to say about foreign language.
That was an
and that's what
example.
happens if you're in a big, if you're in a, but it's not actually accurate. So if you're in a bigger school, consolidated school, and you have more students, you're able to offer more.
I believe that was Representative.
That's what I was saying.
Oh,
Yes, that was my point. Yeah,
you want to consolidate schools.
I do. I think we need to consolidate schools. We have
I didn't know.
8 high schools in Rutland County alone. 8.
Okay, well,
Yes.
And then.
I'm gonna make a
For the
public.
bus rides, I just have to say, we have kids who are on the bus for longer than 30 minutes just to get to Burlington High School because they have to go through the south end, the downtown, and then the new north end.
I understand that. That's my other point. I only live 4 miles from town.
And well, I'm
gonna bring us-
everybody to know that.
Yes.
Kids are on the bus, even in big high schools.
They do. They are.
Go across.
I'm gonna bring us back to the yield bill. And before I do that, I'm gonna make a little public service announcement for anyone who's nervous about where they are on the calendar. The speaker is very aware that we're all here and that we are reporting almost every bill, and they will move things around so we all have the time we need. Back to our regularly scheduled amendment conversation. Representative Holcomb, I think you're next up.
Yeah, I really appreciate you, and I actually agree with you. In your area is one of the areas that the task force singled out as most desperately needing high school consolidation. And you have too many high schools, you've lost 1,000 kids, you could actually put the entire population of some of your high schools in Rutland High School.
Well, we're living right here too.
And this was the first one. And I think the point is that consolidation needs to happen, not always where people think it does, but there are places where we have too many high schools for the kids. And I think the concern I had, and one of the reasons I actually didn't vote for the yield bill, was it can't be done without a little bit of construction money. And sometimes it's not much. Sometimes you just need to give the kids new uniforms, a new face in the school, and let them pick a mascot so they don't feel like they're moving into someone else's house. But sometimes this has to have a little bit of cash to help get that to happen. And my fear is we are heading into a much higher risk year next year. We're losing a ton of money. Budgets are going to be much, much tighter next year. By kicking the can down the road on that buy down this year, we're setting people up for a tax cliff next year when they're hurting even more. And what we won't have done, we've taken the money we could have spent on construction to help your area do what you're talking about, and we're giving it away. And I think will help people today, but it's kind of, again, it's like using your sinking fund in your business. You're trying to save money to fix your roof, and it's using it today on something that you just eat and not your ability to fix your roof down the road. So I hear you. I can't support your amendment because I fear we're creating a tax cliff that people can't afford. We have created a structural deficit in the ed fund that we now feel we have to plug. We're going to have to rip the Band-Aid off and figure out how to bring down costs in a meaningful way. And if we're going to do consolidation, we're going to have some construction to do that.
So may I
Absolutely.
respond to that? Okay. So I will guarantee you that every school district knows that you're going to be holding $52 million in reserve. And when they go to set their budgets, they're going to say, hey, there's $52 million extra on the table. And they will spend it because they have spent it every single year that we've given them the money. They keep doing it. So I understand that you have to rip the Band-Aid off, but I am not prepared to go back and tell my taxpayers that, oh, we had the money to lower your tax bills to 3.8%, but we chose not to. We're keeping it at 7% because we want you to feel the pain. I'm not doing that. I refuse to do that. Well,
Everyone, one person at a time, Representative Holcomb, let's let Ms. Coyne finish her.
I think that's what's going to happen. I mean, you know, if people are looking at, I'm going to take Barry City, maybe 7% increase right now. And this is an average. So that means that some towns are going to be 16% and 17% tax increases on top of the 40% they've already felt in the last 5 years. I just cannot, it's just not sustainable for property tax payers. It just is not.
I absolutely agree with you. It is not sustainable for property taxpayers. We cannot continue this way. I just want to make sure, and so I think it's really important that we are doing as much as we can this year. I just want to make sure that we're doing as much as we can next year too in a much tighter fiscal environment. I don't think spreading it out across 3 years is reasonable, but I think we need to at least have a guarantee of next year in this environment. But I totally hear where you're coming from with wanting to put everything you can on the line for this. People need to pay their bills. Yeah. Representative Woody.
I agree with what you said. And there is going to be a lot of demand on the general fund next year. And there are going to be many changes because of the one big beautiful bill that are going to hit us very hard. So in order for us to help taxpayers this year and next year, we need to keep, this is my opinion, where I need to keep that money, a portion of that money till next year also. That what will we do when the general fund can't give us anything because people can't get health care and we're putting the hospitals under and people can't eat and it's just not, it's going to be really bad here.
Well, the one thing we could do is pass Senator Ruth's bill, S-220.
Is do what?
Pass Senator Ruth's bill of S-220 to cap it at whatever the.
We did have that scheduled for testimony, but well, we don't seem to have any time in committee anymore these days. So I don't know when we'll get to it, but what's supposed to be scheduled? Yeah.
I really appreciate this, and I agree with you completely, the need for transformation. I agree with you completely that we should be using every resource the state had, because it's not just property taxes. People are feeling the affordability crisis in so many different sectors. And what we're doing to the general fund is completely unsustainable, and we're undercutting other very needed social services. And that's why I supported the amendment that we were just talking about with Representative Cole, because I think that I both want to provide as much relief as possible to low and working, low income, moderate income working families in Vermont. But we need to find a way to replace the revenue, because when we talk about cutting costs, a lot of that means cutting services. And I think that our people need our services now more than ever. So, we could do a wee bit of a quid pro quo. If your caucus would help support, raising some revenue from rich folks, then we could have a real good conversation here, Representative McCoy.
My understanding.
But I do hope that, I think that this bill is going to go through some changes in the other chamber, and there are some provisions outside of just the yields that are important to my community, and that's why I supported, this version of the yield bill, because it has to get through the House. But I'm really hopeful we can get some changes before this thing gets signed into law.
Okay, thank you for your candor.
Folks, I think we have well debated all the options that we had in the outlook in previous times when Representative McCoy didn't have to listen to us. Does anyone have any further questions or anything they want to add? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
I'm gonna offer a straw poll to turn down this amendment. All those in favor of rejecting the amendment? All those opposed? We're very consistent. I love it. Okay.
Found the amendment not favorable, 6-5-0.
Nope, I think it was 7-4.
7-4.
Oh, 7-4.
Yeah, 7-4. Everyone else, okay.
Sorry.
No, it's fine.
No, 7-4, right?
Yeah, you were, yep, you were one of the 7?
I was on the not finding it,
Okay.
Yes.
Great, okay.
make sure.
Thank you, everyone, for your time. I've heard rumors of other amendments, but they have not been realized yet, so please pay attention to all the things